Not gonna cry, not gonna cry. Hello and welcome to The Thread. This is a podcast about knitting and knitwear design. My name is Nicole. I am the creator behind Common Thread Fiber, and that's how you can find me on Instagram, Payhip, Ravelry, obviously YouTube's, crap, I never figured out how to say coffee, that thing, K-O-F-F-I. I can't even spell it, y'all. How am I supposed to say it if I can't spell it? Anyway, that thing. All of those good apps over there, you can find me at Common Thread Fiber. So, first of all, holy way more subscribers, Batman. There's like 500 more of you than there were last week, or the last 2 weeks. So, welcome to all 500 of you. I'm tickled that many of you watched at least one of my episodes and didn't think to yourself, wow, she's nice, but maybe a bit much. So, thank you for choosing to spend your time with me. I'm absolutely thrilled that you're here. So, just a reminder, this podcast is part designer diaries. I am a newbie knitwear designer. Let me stress, newbie. I'm very new at this. I'm still learning how to modify and construct things as well. I'm just me, and as I said in my first episode, I Leroy Jenkins things. So, if I'm gonna learn it, I'm gonna learn it. Like designer learn it, not just learn it for funsies. So, that's just who I am. Leroy Jenkins all the way. So part of this podcast will be those designer diaries. It will also be, what I'm knitting on from other designers, because I do truly believe that even when you are a designer, you should absolutely knit other designers' patterns. I know not everyone agrees with me on that, but as far as I'm concerned, that would be like never going to an art gallery or a museum when you're an artist, and that sounds a little nuts to me. So I will also be sharing those things that I make, patterns from other designers. And who knows what else we'll end up getting up to. We're figuring it out together as we go, and I'm just really glad that you're here to share this messy and imperfect learning journey with me. So if that sounds good, then, as my hero would say, all right, chums, let's do this. Today is going to be a particularly electrocuted squirrel energy episode, so I apologize if you can tell that I'm very because my Golden Haul Shawl pattern, my first pattern ever, is coming out tomorrow, Saturday, September 10th, 2022. I just uploaded it to Ravelry, I got it on Payhip, it's gonna go live tomorrow. And so I'm freaking out a little, but like in a good way. I'm very excited. Can't believe that it's a thing. And this is also where I want to thank all of my test knitters. There was like 16 of you, and every single one of you was fantastic. I'm so thrilled that something I created was worthy of your art. So if you are a test knitter for me and you worked on this pattern, just truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. You have no idea how much it means to me, really. So, not gonna cry, not gonna cry. But it will be a very Golden Haul shawl, or a very Golden Haul episode today. So I hope that jives. I will explain a little bit of kind of the how I designed this pattern. I'll share the book that I used that really helped a lot. And then we'll talk about some other knits as well, because I have been very busy over the last 2 weeks. So let's just get to the Golden Haul shawl. So I've talked about this a little bit in previous episodes. I talked about it a lot, I think, in my first episode. But this is my very first pattern that I have designed. So I'll show it to you here, but I'm also going to pop some video in at some point in this segment of me wearing it, different ways that I wear it, so you can kind of get an idea. Because for all of you Lord of the Rings nerds, fellow Tolkien nerds, I don't know if y'all can see my shrine to Tolkien up there. This is a mumakil of a shawl. It's an elephant. It's gigantic. It has an 81-inch wingspan and I think 30, if not 31-inch depth. It's big. So if you like oversized, worsted weight triangle shawls, this is for you. So as you can kind of see, It's got little baby cables that go down the two sides in the middle and the big old mama cable at the bottom. This is a knitted on border, which in the pattern I have suggested tutorials including how to knit that border on. So it'll show you how to do the purled cast on and how to go about flipping your knitting back and forth while you're getting started. Obviously it's someone else's tutorial, so it won't be for this particular, let's not get it backwards again, Nicole, this particular cable, but it's a very helpful tutorial. So if knitting on a border sounds like it's over your head, I promise you it is not. I learned how to knit on a border when I designed this shawl. I also learned how to knit cables when I designed this shawl. You can do hard things. If I can do hard things, you can do hard things. Trust me. So, let's talk a little bit more about just the general measurements, the specific yarn I used. Let's just really get into the nitty gritty, shall we? So, like I said, this is an 81-inch wide and 30-inch deep shawl, which I am 5 foot nothing. Like 5 foot, period. I barely made it to 5 feet tall. And, I still wanted a really big shawl that I could just wrap myself up in. And let me tell you, I got what I wanted. So the cables are meant to go down the arms and down the back, which obviously I'm sitting, so it's gonna be a little messed up. But yeah, so it's a big shawl and it is seed stitch in the middle. So, you know, if you are someone who likes a comfort knit, if you like stockinette for that comfort, seed stitch is not very far off. So it's very comforting to knit the seed stitch. Sorry, I'm seeing my like cowlet going here. What the? Anyway. But in the middle, it's broken up by these cables, which are not complicated at all. They are a 1/2 right and left twist cable. And you can absolutely do them without a cable needle. That's actually, these little guys got me ready to go for this cable. So I did most, if not all, of the cabling on this cable without a cable needle. And I was really able to do that because the yarn I used is really sticky. Well, it's not really sticky. I have knit with stickier yarns than this, but it is not a superwash. It's not a cotton, which one of my testers did knit this out of cotton, and my Golden Haul tee is being knit out of cotton. So if you are vegan and you want to be knitting with vegan yarns, you can absolutely knit these cables out of cotton as well. They're beautiful in cotton. I'll show you in a little bit. But if you choose a non-superwash sticky wool, knitting this with no cable needle is absolutely no problem. This sample is knit out of KnitPicks Wool of the Andes in brass, so a very budget-friendly yarn. And I love KnitPicks Wool of the Andes. Like, I am a sucker for luxury yarns, for indie dyed yarns. Like, I absolutely love them, but when you just want a workhorse, budget-friendly yarn that will not fail you, I love KnitPicks. So it's 11 skeins of KnitPicks Wool of the Andes, anywhere from between 1,070 yards to 1,200 yards. I will say my testers, there were a few testers who ran out of yarn, and so just keep in mind that if you use a DK weight or a fingering weight, the yardage may vary because your gauge is going to be very different. And if your gauge is off, the yardage is definitely going to vary. So I know I am definitely guilty of not doing a gauge swatch when I do a shawl. But if you really want to make sure you're getting the giant shawl of your dreams, or you want to make sure you're not getting a shawl that is 150 inches in either direction, you'd probably want to swatch for this. So that is the yarn, that is the measurements. What else do we want to talk about? Techniques. Let's talk about techniques. So like I said, this is a knitted on border. And really what you do is you knit the entire body, and then when you get to here, right about here, you do not turn your work, right? I think we decided you don't turn your work. You do the purled cast on the wrong side. So you just cast on these stitches, turn your work, and start going. That's it. That's all you do. So then when you get to the ends, so you'll knit across here, right? On the wrong side. So I'm showing you on the right side. Okay, let's not be dumb. So you go across on the wrong side, then you flip your work, you go back across on the right side, and as you get to here, you just knit or purl two together. I did alternating knit purl togethers so that it kind of kept in the seed stitch. I tried doing just straight knit 2 togethers and it was a hard line, very clear and obvious. But if that's something you like, you could do it however you see fit. You could just purl 2 togethers, you could knit 2 togethers, or you could follow the pattern and kind of get this textured stuff here. So that is the trickiest technique that's necessary. The other technique that I will mention here is it is a garter tab cast on. So let me show you. This kind of, you can kind of see it, womp womps. That is from the garter tab cast on. So you cast on, I think it's 4 stitches. I should have had the pattern in front of me. Like, it's my pattern, I should know this by heart, right? Wrong. But you cast on 4 stitches and you just knit garter going down. And you do that for, I think, 66 rows. And then you pick up 33 stitches. And if that sounds like that doesn't like equal up to me, I skipped the first and last of the stitches. So, but that's what you do. You go down the garter tab, you pick stitches up, and then you just get knitting. So, like I said, these are these little baby shawl, these baby cables, baby shawls. This is not a baby, this is a mama shawl. The baby cables in here are very simple. They're just 1/2 left and right leaning cables, and you easily can do that without a cable needle. You just drop it to the front, knit, pick it up, and go. I was even able to do that in cotton. Like, it's really not stressful to do it in cotton. I have not knit this out of superwash, so if any of you choose to knit this and you knit it out of superwash, please let me know how it goes. If you choose to do it without a cable needle, I would love to know. So let me go ahead and just pop some footage of me wearing it and kind of explain a little bit some of my favorite ways to wear this. So my #1 all-time favorite way to wear this is, I call it the grandma shawl. I hope that's not insulting, but it's wearing it like the triangle shawl. And I call it the grandma shawl because my Grammy used to call it that. And so I think of my Grammy when I call it, you know, grandma style. But it's just wearing it like a triangle shawl. And it is so big that if you use a shawl pin with it, it's essentially like wearing a poncho. It's glorious, at least in my opinion. The other way that I really love to wear this is with the cable down, so the cable that would be on either the right or the left side, wear that going down the front and the middle cable going down the arm. So wearing it as if it was an asymmetrical triangle shawl. And when I wear it that way, it doesn't come off. Like, I can jump around, do a little dance, you know, be my super extra self, and it doesn't come undone. But you could always secure it with a shawl pin if you so chose. And then the other way that you could wear this, if I still lived in Indiana or Chicago, I don't know if I ever mentioned, I went to Loyola University Chicago for college. So I know the life of waking up to 3-foot snowbanks blocking your apartment door. If I still lived there, I would absolutely wear it this way with the middle cable going down the front, wrapped around like the world's largest scarf. I absolutely wish I could wear it that way, but I live in Florida. No dice as far as that's concerned. I think I would suffocate. But so those are just some ways to wear this. It is gigantic, so I know sometimes very large shawls can seem overwhelming. But I want to mention, as far as knitting it is concerned, it's worsted weight. If you knit it with the suggested yarn, it is worsted weight, so it will go quicker than you may imagine. And like I said, the seed stitch is super comforting. The baby cables are not a lot, but it's enough to keep you engaged. And then the border cable it's intricate, but on every wrong side row, you're just knitting as the stitches present. So you get a break every other row. And then once you get about 1/4 of the way in, it becomes really intuitive. And I felt this way, and some of my testers felt this way too. By the time they got halfway in, or 3/4 of the way in, they were really loving knitting the border cable and felt like, what am I gonna do when I don't have this cable anymore? I just cast it on a t-shirt with it, but you do you, boo. So that's some of the really nitty-gritty details of this shawl. I did want to talk about the inspiration. I've kind of talked about it a little bit, but I want to go into a little more detail, and I also want to talk about the the book that I used to really help, because like I said, this is my very first pattern. So I do not want to give anyone the impression that I came up with this cable out of my head. I did not. It came out of a stitch dictionary. And I don't want anyone to think that like I created all this math out of the ether. It did not. I did not. I'll talk about that stuff first. I used, I know she goes by Frenchie Danoy's forming charts and their shawls. This is an ebook. So I printed it out because I'm a Luddite. So I printed it out and put it in a little binder. But it is Forming Shawls and Their Charts by Aroha Knits. I got this on Ravelry. I think it should still be there. But it's fantastic. It's a wonderful resource. And her goal really is to help all of us design whatever we want. So you can see she goes through a bunch of different shawl types. She helps you with the math. She gives you different equations to use in Excel. I did not use Excel. Like I said, I'm a Luddite. I kid you not, I got a giant piece of graph paper and just dot, because that's who I am. Like, really Nicole, whatever. So Aroha Knits, wonderful designer. She is also an excellent resource for anyone who's trying to become a designer or even just wanting to make your own stuff just for yourself. She has an online community, which I think the community itself is free, but she gives classes that they are paid for. And like I said, this book is excellent. It goes through every kind of shawl. I didn't follow what she was doing to the very letter, but this book gave me the tools that I needed to know, okay, well, I can fudge a little here, I can change a little here. So 10 out of 10 would recommend if you just want to cast on your own shawl and go. Forming Shawls and Their Charts by Aroha Knits. So that is the book I used. The cable came from, I should have put it over here. I'll put the book that the cable came from down in the down bar. The border cable. Well, I think both cables came out of that. And I want to say something about stitch dictionaries. I have heard from other people that using stitch dictionaries makes you less of a designer or less creative. To that I say, bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Anyone who tells you that, I don't know what happened to them in their lives, bullshit. That's like saying that Picasso is not an artist because he uses the color blue. Someone had to teach him to mix that color. And that teacher may have had their own special sauce recipe for different shades of blue. And then someone had to teach him how to hold the paintbrush and how to make the painting. Like, yes, Picasso was a genius, but he'd come out of the womb with a paintbrush in his hand. I hope not, for his mother's sake. So, this idea that, especially beginner designers, that you should be making these cables, making these colorwork charts completely on your own and use none of the resources available to you, and that if you do, you're less of an artist, I call crap. So don't feel some type of way. If you want to make your own thing and you see a stitch in a stitch dictionary, just flip to the front and check the copyright. So, for example, Nora Gaughan's Twisted Stitch and her cabled source book, she makes it very clear you can use it however you want, even if you're putting it in a pattern to sell it. But if you're going to put it in a pattern to sell, please just give me credit, which I think is totally a reasonable thing to ask for. Plus, it's Nora Gaughan. Like, I've had some conversations with another designer about Nora Gaughan's patterns, and those really did come out of her head. And so you can tell they're very personal and very intimate. So I could never imagine using one of her cables, just verbatim. But she makes it very clear you can. Alice Starmore, on the other hand, the queen of colorwork, she makes it very clear you can use the traditional patterns because they're traditional, but you can't use mine. So you just want to pay attention when you use a stitch dictionary to what the copyright is, respect what the designers are asking, but by all means, do not feel less than because you are taking inspiration from a stitch dictionary. Because why is it any less to take it from a stitch dictionary than it is to take it from the tree that the leaf is on? Just haters gonna hate. That's all I have to say about that. You are an artist, even if you are knitting from someone else's pattern and you never designed something on your own. You are still an artist. If you make things, you're an artist. I said what I said. And that's today's episode. No, I'm kidding. So that's kind of how I went about designing this. I definitely had inspiration from Stitch dictionaries. Without Aroha knits, this would have taken me so much longer. I am a mathematically impaired cultural anthropologist, so Aroha knits really saved my butt as far as the math was concerned. So I guess the only thing left to talk about there is the inspiration, which I know I've talked about this a little bit, but I kind of want to explain a little bit more. I'm just going to put a trigger warning in right here. I forgot to mention this when I started talking, so if it looks like the video has jumped, I apologize. But I do want to mention a trigger warning here. I am going to talk about a little bit about my struggle with anxiety. So if that is triggering for you, please feel free to jump forward. I'll leave a timestamp in the bottom for you to do so. So the inspiration comes from Rowan. It comes from the Meduseld, or the Golden Hall, which is the ruling hall of Edoras. So the King of Rowan lives there, rules there. I've talked about how King Theoden is a big part of that inspiration because I designed this shawl after the worst anxiety flare-up I have ever had. I'm very open about my struggles with anxiety. And I'm open about it because I think the only way to end the stigma is if those of us who deal with it and feel comfortable sharing do so. That is not to say if you deal with anxiety or depression or any other mental illness and you don't want people to know your business, that is totally fine. I am just very good at being vulnerable. I have very little shame about it. Saying shame about it, I feel no shame in what I share. That's what I mean by that. You should have absolutely no shame if you struggle with a mental illness of any kind. So I'm very open about my struggles with anxiety. I was suffering from generalized anxiety disorder, which 43% of people who actually have GAD get treatment. So there's a huge number of people who are struggling with this anxiety disorder that don't get any kind of treatment. I'm very lucky. I received the treatment that I needed, and I'm on the mend. My therapist made it very clear to me, anxiety does not need to be a life sentence. If you do the work, you can heal. And so that's where the Golden Hall Shawl was born. It was born from my doctor telling me that, and then watching King Theoden literally throw a wizard out of his brain and show up with his sword in his hand. I mean, can you think of a better role model for someone who is dealing with severely distorted thoughts? I can't. Not for me personally, at least. So because of that, my pattern is coming out September 10th from September 10th through September 17th. 15% of all sales after fees from the Golden Hall Shawl are going to be donated to NAMI, or the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So if you feel like buying it and you want to know that 15% of what you're spending is going to a really good cause, then I would suggest buying that first week from September 10th through September 17th. And I will leave a link to the National Alliance on Mental Illness. They do really great work on essentially ending the stigma. They have a lot of educational, series for people who are struggling with mental illness themselves, and for people who are also supporting them. So that's the Golden Hall Shawl. That's the inspiration. It's a little bit of the process of how I created it. And I will probably go ahead and put some tester photos in, maybe here, or maybe when I talked about the test knitters, I don't know. But tester photos that I do have will be included. You'll see some of them genuinely dressed up, and that's a thing. It's a thing. I love it. The Golden Hall Shawl is a vibe all on its own. We talked about recipes. Some of us were listening to the audiobooks. This test knit is really what pushed me to create the thread on Discord, which I guess I'll put a plug in here for that. The thread on Discord, it is a Discord server for nerdy knitters and non-nerdy knitters alike, because honestly, if you're a nerd for knitting, you're a nerd. So come join us. We have threads for just about every craft you could possibly think of, anything from knitting, crocheting, food, plant lovers, four-legged friends, and we have a book club, and we're doing a fall fandom make-along, which, by the way, my Golden Hall Shawl would totally qualify for. So the fall fandom make-along starts on September 17th, and I'm putting forward a $50 prize, and we also have Sarah someone who is a follower of mine. Hi, Sarah! She is also donating a handmade project bag, and I don't have it here. It's gonna be here on Saturday, so I will post maybe a short of it when it gets here. But let me tell you, it's adorable. It is Hobbiton inspired. It is beautiful. And Sarah made this bag by hand. So she put that forward as a prize too. So we have 2 prizes going for this make along. A $50 gift card from me to whatever crafty institution you choose. So if you're a sewist, it could be fabric.com or a local fabric store. If you're a knitter, it could be your local yarn store or Love Crafts or Webs. Totally up to you, should you win. And then we'll have a second drawing for the project bag, which maybe I'll put a skein of yarn in. I haven't decided yet. But whole point is that to be eligible for those prizes, you do need to be a member of the thread on Discord. That being said, if you don't really care about prizes and you're not in a position to join the thread, because it is $2 a month, if you're not in a position to join the membership, I will be having the hashtag on Instagram, hashtag FallFandomMal. So you can still follow along, join in on Instagram if you'd like. Just know that the only people eligible for the prizes will be the members on the thread. Okay, I feel very disorganized today, y'all. I'm sorry if this is a little rambly. Let's move on to the Golden Hall tea. Excuse me while I suck teeth for a minute, because me and the Golden Hall tea are not getting along this week. Mostly because I can't do math. That's right, you heard it here. I'm a knitting designer who can't do math. Here's how far I got. I said in my last episode I was hoping to have the front of this done. No dice, not even close, let alone with a cigar. It did not happen. So here it is. I did get the border cable casted on. So you can kind of see, you can start to see, or maybe you can't. Okay, there we go. You can kind of start to see how it's going to look. So the border cable will also be on this side, so you're not going to have this weird like, it'll be attached. I'm going to pop some video in of me wearing this so you can see why we're not getting along. It is way too long. It is supposed to be a tee, not a tunic. I decided. Which I will, in this pattern, there will be length modification advice. So if you want a tunic, you can make a tunic. If you want a crop top, you can have a crop top. But on me, no, it's way too long. And the hem is the split hem is not long enough. So it's like, why is it even split? It's so goofy. So yeah, fail. Math fail. So I need to rip out the border cable and rip out the work I did to get this guy. I can't even tell which way is up. Oh Lord. Yeah, so gotta rip out. It really needs to be at least 2 inches shorter. And here's why. As you'll see in the video, the cable weighs down the tee, which I expected. But I did not do enough math to figure out how much it would weigh it down. So I'm trying this tee on, as I go, and I'm thinking, it's still a crop top. Like, it's still way too short. This can't be right. And I need at least 5.5 inches because the border cable itself is 5 inches. It's 5.5 inches actually. So it needs to be 5.5 inches from where I want the cable to start. Wrong, because it weighs it down. So it needs to be more like 4 inches, or if not even, no, that's the wrong way. See, math, guys. It needs to be probably closer to 7.5 inches from where I want this to start, because it weighs the seed stitch down. So it shouldn't grow necessarily as you wear it. It's just in that initial casting that on it and getting it knitted on, it's going to pull the fabric down. Which again, I expected, but not to the degree. I was so excited, guys. I was so excited. I put it on and I expected it to fit. It was gonna be like my big aha moment, and instead I have to rip it out. Ugh. Designer problems. But you know what? I'm actually not even, am I annoyed? Yeah, because it was an avoidable problem, but at the same time, this is designing. Even if you are someone who is an Excel wizard and you can design your whole thing in Excel before you knit it, you're still going to have those moments where you got to rip it out, because even though the computer says it should work, that doesn't mean it will actually work. So this is where we're at. Say goodbye to the border cable, because I will be ripping it out and redoing it. Hopefully next episode I'll have more happy news for you on that. So let's see. Is there anything else? The yarn, I've mentioned it before, this is a cotton yarn. So this is how the border cable looks in cotton. If we can get it to focus. Yeah. So there it is in cotton. It's very easy to knit in cotton as well. I'm knitting it in cotton with no cable needle and really not having a problem at all. I don't know if it's because this isn't like the world's slipperiest cotton, but it's really not a problem for me, at least, in this cotton. So it's Paintbox DK cotton in their racing green colorway. I've talked about it a little bit before. Very budget friendly yarn. And that's something you're going to see a lot from me. I do my designing in very budget-friendly workhorse yarns because of how much I need to rip it out. And then I might do a second sample in, you know, less budget-friendly yarn. Like, for example, my Golden Hall shawl that I'm knitting out of Green Mountain Spinnery. Glorious yarn. Can't wax poetic enough about Green Mountain Spinnery, but not the most budget-friendly yarn on earth. Oh, but God, it smells good. Like, just take my money. Take all my money. Just take all my money, Green Mountain Spinnery, please. Can I just pay you rent? Just let me sniff it. It's fine. So, you'll see that a lot from me. You'll see the first sample will be budget-friendly, and then should I knit a second sample, I would probably do it out of a, probably more, I don't want to say luxury, but from a yarn that maybe wouldn't be as easy on the wallet. And that's also because I want the patterns to be accessible. I want people to see that these patterns look just as good in the budget-friendly yarns as they do in the, you know, the more expensive yarns, because that's something I know it exploded a couple of years ago. You know, people asking, do you understand how expensive your suggested yarn is? And that's no shade at indie dyers or spinners who, like, your art is worth what you charge for it. 100%. Indie dyers should not charge less. Green Mountain Spinnery should not charge less. But it's good to know that patterns look just as good in budget-friendly yarns as they do in cashmere. So that's that's my hot take on that. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say about the Golden Hall tea, because I'm giving it the silent treatment at the moment, and I will no longer speak its name for the rest of the day. So, moving right along to the Heart of the Mountain shawl. I cast this puppy on, guys, and I am flying. This is my latest shawl design. It is inspired by Thorin Oakenshield, and I'm in freaking love. I'm in love, and it is starting to rain. So I live in Florida, and when it starts to rain, by that I mean it's a little mini hurricane. So if it seems like right about now the video may jump, if it does, it's because we had torrential rainfall and I stopped to wait until it was done so you wouldn't hear the end of days coming. But I'm gonna keep going for now. So here it is, the Heart of the Mountain shawl. I love it. So it will be this way, actually. Come on, focus. There we go. Kind of hard to see because it's the gray yarn, right? It's reflecting back. This is the superwash yarn. So if you watched my previous episode, I talked about, do I knit it out of the superwash? Do I not knit it out of the superwash? I went ahead and went with the superwash yarn because I know I'll wear it because it's Florida and superwash yarn is not as warm, or at least not as sticky warm as non-superwash yarns. And again, I love both. I love the sticky, crunchy wools, and, you know, superwash yarn I think is absolutely, you know, a valid yarn choice. Is it the best for the environment? No, but that's why, you know, knit with a variety of yarn then. Like, there's no yarn snobbery, there's no yarn, no yarn shame here. You're never gonna get that from me. So, but here it is. It is cabled all over. So it will be an asymmetrical shawl that has these guys going over most of it, and then single cables going down further down the sides. I can pop in a picture of the swatch because I don't believe. Oh wait, no, I have the swatch right here. Okay, so here's the swatch in superwash yarn. Wow, that's backwards. So there it is in superwash yarn, but you can really see here, because it's a bigger swatch, this is how it will look. So it'll have those diamondy cables going down most of it, and then it will have the single cables going down the rest of it. And it'll be like this, and you'll wear it going this way. I am loving knitting this. You know, it looks really complicated, and don't get me wrong, it's not complicated, but it becomes potato chip knitting because it's just one more row. Just one more row. I just want to see how it'll look with just one more diamond. And I'm loving it, truly. And it's just right and left leaning cables. That's it. 2/2 and 2/1s. Left leaning and left purl leaning, right purl leaning. That's not it. 2/2, left purl cross, 2/2, right purl cross, 2/2, you know, left cross, right cross. That's all it is. So it's really not that complicated. It just looks really complicated, and it becomes so intuitive, like so intuitive. And like my golden haul shawl, on the other side, you get a break. You're just knitting as it presents. So you're not cabling on both sides. You don't have to pay a whole lot of attention on the wrong side. So even though this is definitely a knit you have to pay attention to, it's not, you know, so deep that you don't get to enjoy it. I'm absolutely loving this. And the yarns, let me grab the skein. So this yarn is from Baby Cat Yarns. You can see her adorable logo. So Britt from Baby Cat Yarns dyed this up for me. It is in her Thundersnow colorway on her sport weight base, and I'm loving knitting with it. I really am. So I would 10 out of 10 recommend Baby Cat Yarns. Britt is hilarious. Her yarn is beautiful. Her colors have so much depth. She just dyed up a new palette that has this green that I don't want to be over dramatic, but I would die for this green. And just go check her out at Baby Cat Yarns. I'll also leave her website and her Instagram handle in the down bar. So what else do I want to say about this? This was a lot of math. I'll talk more about this shawl in an upcoming episode. I can give you a little bit more of the nitty-gritty with the math, how I found gauge, because finding gauge with cables is different. It's definitely different. So it's a little trickier. You have to count how many stitches are in 4 inches and then do your math from there. And it's harder to count, or actually you just pay attention to how many stitches are in the pattern repeat, and you measure for 4 inches, and that kind of gives you your gauge. So it's not a matter of just counting these like it is in stockinette. So, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in the future. So like I said, this is Thorin Oakenshield inspired. And I love me some Thorin Oakenshield. Like, he is moody, he is determined, he is dwarven, and I'm a total dwarf. I love him so much. I would absolutely go be lucky number 14 if they'd let me. And yeah, I saw his armor in The Hobbit, and I knew I need me some of that so bad. So that's what this was inspired by, and yeah, I'm absolutely loving knitting it. I don't have any idea when this pattern will be available. It's not even in testing yet. I'm still just knitting the sample. So you guys are along for the ride for the whole shebang this time, unlike the Golden Haul Shawl. I think there's only one other pattern that I want to talk about, and there's not a whole lot to see yet, but just proof of life, I did indeed cast on my critical knit, like I said I would. Look at that color. Ugh, stop it. Hello. So anyone watch The Marvelous Miss Maisel? Never mind. Hello. I love this color. I love this yarn. Okay, this is Softyak DK by Rowan. Guys, it feels like an antique couch. I'm obsessed. I love it. It's knitting up and it feels like velvet. Like, not like in, you know, the kind of velvet, but like it's warm, but it's smooth and silky. So this is a chainette yarn that is yak and I think cotton, right? Let's see. It is, again, you would think I would check these things before I do this, but I don't. Yes, it is yak, cotton, and nylon. And the rain is here, so I hope you can't hear this. But let's see if we can get through. So the Critical Knit sweater by Brittany Westmorland. And I got a question on my last podcast about what happens when the yokes are too long. So that question was in relation to raglan yokes. And I did actually answer that question in detail in the written comments. But I can talk about it generally in the raglan sense, and I think how I'm dealing with it in the circular yoke sense. So when you have a raglan, like my Golden Hall tee, the measurement you're really wanting to pay attention to is the armhole depth. So you're increasing along that depth, right? But you want, let's say, a 44-inch bust. That's what I have. So if you get to 8 3/4 inches, I'm just using crazy numbers here, 8 3/4 inches, but you have not done all your increases yet, what do? If you keep going, you keep increasing, you're gonna get, your armhole depth is gonna be too long. And so you're gonna get bat wings. Now there are some patterns where that's a design feature, that's on purpose. So if you don't like that look, avoid patterns where the designer or the model is wearing it purposefully looking like dolman sleeves or oversized. So I knit the Camp Pullover by Amy Christophers. Definitely was supposed to have armhole depth that was very long. It was a very oversized, super snuggly raglan. I'll pop a picture in of mine and of hers. Absolutely loved that knit. 10 out of 10 would recommend. But if that was not a design feature and your row gauge is off, what you want to do is knit to the length that you need, so 8 3/4 inches, and then what you do is you separate for sleeves, and when you cast on your extra, X amount of stitches that you need, you do extra stitches. So you figure out the number of stitches that you would have needed, which usually I think for most of us we're missing like maybe 4 increases tops. I mean, if you are knitting and you need another 10, 15 increases, your row gauge is way, way off. Like that's a big problem. But we're not usually missing that much. We're usually pretty close. So you cast on those extra stitches under the arm. That way the circumference of the bust stays as it needs to stay, but you're not increasing the armhole depth. Those stitches will need to be dealt with when you do your sleeve, but almost all of us end up decreasing in the sleeves one way or another. So I have some links I can share that go a little bit more into depth about that. That's how you deal with it with a raglan. I don't have links for the circular yoke because I did not look into it, but this yarn is wildly different than the yarn that Brittany of Suki Mountain suggests. This is a chainette cotton yak yarn. So my row gauge is way off. And it turned out though that I can knit a larger size and just take out 3 rows of the color work. And so it will fit me just fine. So that's how I deal with yokes that are too long. I've shown this sweater before, I think on every single podcast. This is the Birkin sweater by Caitlin Hunter. I did the exact same thing here, except I took out a lot more than 3 rows because I wanted to use a chainette yarn that I could wear a little more easily in Florida. And the row gauge would have been way off. Like the armholes would have been down by my knees. It would have been really bad. So I took out entire flowers and I redistributed the increases. So that's a lot more in depth. But sometimes you can get away with just taking out a couple of rows and you're usually okay. So when your grow gauge is too big and you're getting there too quickly, that's kind of how you approach that. I hope that makes sense. And if anyone knows of a different way, remember, newbie designer, still learning. So if there's a different way you know how to deal with that, please leave it in the comments. I would love to hear it. That is all of the knitting content that I have for you today. I will share, I ran out of stitch markers. Who else has this problem? Like you never, like tampons, you never have one when you need them. But, so I ordered myself some new stitch markers. They're little hexagons. And I ordered them from Back Porch Fiber Company. They came very quickly. I ordered her entire stock, and they're very cute. I love metal stitch markers. So if anyone has metal stitch marker recommendations, again, drop them in the comments. I would love to hear them. And let's see. I think that's all that I have this week. So Golden Hall shawl pattern comes out tomorrow. Wish me luck. I'm so excited. I can't believe it. I'm so tickled. So thank you so much, as usual, for spending your time with me. I hope you got something out of this episode. And I hope I see you again next week. You have a great weekend.